When a convicted killer escapes from one of the most secure prisons in the United States, the world watches in disbelief. But behind the steel bars and concrete walls lies a story no one saw coming. A story of obsession, betrayal, and a plan so perfect it fooled everyone. Until one detail, one single mistake, exposed the truth. The night the walls bled silence. The night was quiet, too quiet for Green River Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison carved into the rocky outskirts of Nevada. Floodlights painted long white scars across the razor wire, and the desert wind howled against the metal fences. At 2:13 a.m., a guard named Michael Trent noticed something strange. The cameras along cell block D flickered just once. A glitch, maybe, but when the feed came back online, cell D-47 was empty. The inmate's name was Evan Cole, convicted of a brutal double homicide in 2017. A man whose calm, emotionless face had haunted detectives for years. A man sentenced to life without parole. Within minutes, alarms tore through the silence. Sirens screamed, lights flashed, and officers flooded the corridors. Every gate, every hallway, every checkpoint sealed shut. But Evan Cole had vanished. By dawn, the warden stood before a line of reporters, her face pale and tight. "This facility has never had an escape in its 40-year history," she said. Until tonight. The investigation began immediately. Detectives from the Nevada State Bureau arrived on site, led by Detective Laura Briggs, a sharp, relentless investigator with a reputation for breaking impossible cases. She'd studied Cole's file before. His crimes weren't random. They were deliberate, planned, personal. But nothing in that file explained this. In his cell, the bed was neatly made. The sheets were crisp, corners tucked with military precision. The only thing missing was the man himself. No signs of forced entry, no broken locks, just absence. Then Briggs found something. Beneath the mattress, taped to the bed frame, a photo. A woman smiling, sunlight spilling across her face. On the back, a note. "You kept your promise. Now it's my turn." The woman was identified as Dr. Melissa Hart, a prison psychologist who had worked at Green River for 3 years. When questioned, she looked visibly shaken. "He was intelligent," she said softly. "Charming, even. But I never thought he'd—" She stopped mid-sentence. Briggs pressed. "You never thought he'd what?" Melissa's eyes filled with tears. "That he'd remember." Security footage from 3 days earlier showed Dr. Hart entering the prison late at night. She claimed it was for an emergency evaluation. But when investigators cross-checked the logs, there was no record of her visit in the system. Someone had deleted it. Meanwhile, a highway patrol unit 40 miles east of the prison found a burned-out van abandoned in the desert. Inside, melted restraints, traces of blood, and a shredded prison jumpsuit marked D-47. DNA confirmed it belonged to Evan Cole. But when they searched the surrounding area, nothing. No footprints. No tracks. Just the endless desert and the faint smell of gasoline. By the third day, news outlets across the country were calling it the impossible escape. Theories spread like wildfire. Was it an inside job? A cover-up? Or was Evan Cole dead? His body lost in the desert night? Detective Briggs didn't believe he was dead. Not yet. She studied his case files for patterns, motives, connections, anything. That's when she saw it. In every crime scene photo from 2017, there was something small, almost hidden. A silver keychain in the shape of a raven. Investigators had dismissed it as coincidence. But now one just like it had been found taped inside the burned van. She reopened the evidence box, tracing the cold metal bird with her thumb. It wasn't random. It was a message. That evening, Briggs visited Dr. Hart again. The woman looked exhausted, her hands trembling. "You think he's coming for you?" Briggs asked quietly. Melissa hesitated, then whispered, "No, he's coming for someone else." "Who?" The psychologist looked up, eyes hollow. "Me." Before Briggs could respond, her phone buzzed. A new alert from the Bureau. A security camera in Reno, 200 miles north, had just picked up a license plate linked to Dr. Hart's car. Behind the wheel was a man with pale eyes and a faint smile. Evan Cole. Alive. And he wasn't running anymore. He was hunting. The woman who opened the gate. The city of Reno shimmered under the glow of neon signs and casino lights, but for Detective Laura Briggs, it was just another shadow waiting to swallow the truth. She arrived at the scene before sunrise, an abandoned motel off the highway, where Dr. Melissa Hart's car had been found. The vehicle door hung open. A smear of blood streaked the handle. On the passenger seat sat an old cassette tape, unlabeled, coated in dust. Briggs slipped on gloves, pressed play. First, only static. Then a man's voice, smooth, cold, and calm. You think you understand people, Melissa. You think you can fix them. But all you did was open the door. The moment you crossed that line, we were both free. Briggs froze. Evan Cole's voice. No doubt. The tape ended abruptly. But as she removed it from the player, she noticed a faint etching on the plastic. R02. Same marking found on previous pieces of evidence in Cole's case. Pattern was emerging. He was leaving breadcrumbs, not random but deliberate, almost playful. Briggs ordered her team to sweep the area. They found tire tracks leading west, toward Lake Tahoe. A thin trail, but it was all she had. 2 days earlier, before the escape, prison security footage, now recovered from corrupted drives, had revealed the missing puzzle piece. At 11:42 p.m., a side service gate near the maintenance wing opened briefly. A woman in a white lab coat walked through, scanning her badge. The system recorded her as Dr. Hart. But the timestamp didn't match her schedule. She wasn't supposed to be there, and the guard on duty that night, Officer Trent, never logged her exit. Briggs stared at the footage in disbelief. She didn't just help him, she murmured. She planned it. Back at Lake Tahoe, the search intensified. A hiker reported seeing smoke rising from a cabin deep within the forest. When authorities arrived, they found the remnants of a fire. Ashes, empty food cans, and footprints leading down toward the shore. Briggs crouched by the water's edge. Something metallic glinted in the sand. She picked it up, a locket. Inside, 2 photos. A young Melissa Hart, and beside her a man in a military uniform. Not Evan Cole. The inscription read, "Until the end, M." Briggs frowned. Who was he? A background check revealed the man's name, Lieutenant Aaron Cole, Evan's older brother. Killed in Afghanistan in 2015. The revelation hit hard. Dr. Melissa Hart wasn't just Cole's psychologist. She had once been his brother's fiancée. It all started making sense. When Aaron Cole was declared dead, Melissa spiraled into depression. That same year, Evan committed his first murder. 2 people tied to the private military firm that had abandoned his brother's unit. The press called it vengeance. But to Melissa, it was closure. During therapy sessions, Evan had manipulated her grief, twisting love into guilt and guilt into loyalty. Slowly, she crossed the line between doctor and accomplice. And on the night of his escape, she'd done the unthinkable. Used her security clearance to disable the system, copy guard credentials, and smuggle in a maintenance uniform. She opened the gate. He walked out. Together. Now they were ghosts on the run. Briggs coordinated with the FBI. Checkpoints lined every major road in Nevada and Northern California. Helicopters scanned the forests. Every motel, gas station, and diner had their faces posted on screens. Still, they stayed one step ahead, until a tip came from a gas station clerk near Truckee. A woman matching Dr. Hart's description had bought food, a burner phone, and fuel. She looked nervous, said she was meeting someone at the lake. An hour later, a fisherman found the same burner phone floating near the docks. The last text sent from it was to a number registered under a false name. Message: "It's done. I'll meet you where the sky breaks." Briggs didn't understand the phrase until she checked Cole's old prison sketches. One showed a cliff overlooking Lake Tahoe. Scribbled beneath it, "Where the sky breaks." That night, search teams descended on the cliffside. The forest was thick, moonlight struggling to cut through. Briggs followed the path alone, her flashlight slicing through the dark. Then movement. A figure stepped from behind a tree. It was Melissa Hart. Her face pale, hands shaking, clothes stained with blood. "Where's Cole?" Briggs demanded. Melissa's voice cracked. "You're too late." "What do you mean?" She dropped to her knees. "He promised he'd never hurt me. He lied." Briggs scanned the shadows, and that's when she saw it. A body, half buried in the dirt beside the cliff's edge. Male. Blonde hair. Prison tattoo on the forearm. Evan Cole. A gun lay beside him, one bullet fired. Melissa whispered, almost to herself. "He said we'd be free together. He didn't tell me I'd have to bury him." Briggs stood there, the cold wind whipping through the trees, silence heavy as stone. But as her radio crackled with calls from nearby units, Briggs noticed something strange. A second set of footprints leading away from the scene. They weren't Melissa's, and they were too large to belong to Evan Cole. She followed them to the edge of the cliff, where a cigarette but still smoked, freshly dropped. Someone else had been there, someone who watched it all happen. And somewhere in the distance, a car engine roared to life, then faded into the night. The ghost in the desert. The morning sun burned over the Nevada desert, casting long golden streaks across the endless sand. Detective Laura Briggs stood at the edge of the cliff near Lake Tahoe, staring down at Evan Cole's lifeless body. Medical examiners confirmed it, a gunshot to the head. The wound was clean, the pistol nearby registered to Dr. Melissa Hart. To anyone else, it looked like a tragic ending. The psychologist driven to madness, killing the man she'd helped escape. But Briggs didn't buy it. The footprints, the cigarette butt, the burned rubber on the road, told a different story. Someone else had been there. And if Cole was dead, someone had wanted it that way. The FBI closed the case within 48 hours. Cole's dead. Hart's in custody. Case closed, the agent in charge said. Briggs stared at the files on her desk. Then who wiped the camera logs? Who cut the power at Green River that night? No one answered. Melissa Hart was transferred to a federal facility for psychological evaluation. She refused to speak, eating little, sleeping less. On the fourth day, Briggs was granted one last interview. Inside the small interrogation room, Melissa sat hunched forward, wrists cuffed, eyes empty. Briggs set down a folder of photos, Cole's body, the locket, the burned van. "You didn't kill him, did you?" she asked softly. Melissa looked up, her voice barely a whisper. "He wanted me to, but I couldn't." Briggs leaned closer. "Then who pulled the trigger?" Melissa's lips trembled. "Someone he called the Ghost." That name sent a chill down Briggs's spine. Digging through Cole's old files, she found scattered references. Prison interviews, letters, coded notes, all mentioning the Ghost. No real name, no description. Just fragments. "He knows the truth. He can finish what I started." One line stood out, written in Cole's slanted handwriting. "The Ghost doesn't hide in shadows. He hides inside systems." Briggs's gut tightened. Whoever this person was, they weren't just involved, they'd orchestrated everything. The escape, the cover-up, maybe even Cole's death. 2 weeks later, something strange happened. At 3 a.m., a tech analyst from the bureau called Briggs. "You need to see this." He played a file recovered from the prison's deleted data archives. A maintenance system backup. Amid the corrupted footage, one frame flickered into view. A man in a gray jumpsuit wearing a cap, pushing a supply cart through cell block D the night of the escape. The timestamp matched the moment the cameras glitched. The analyst froze the image and enhanced the reflection in the metal door beside him. It wasn't Evan Cole. It was Officer Michael Trent, the same guard who'd first reported the glitch. By dawn, Briggs was on the road again, tracing Trent's last known location. He hadn't reported to work since the day after the escape. His apartment was empty, the walls stripped bare. Only one thing remained. A small photo pinned to the kitchen wall. It showed 3 soldiers standing in front of a Humvee. 2 of them she recognized, Evan Cole and his brother Aaron. The third was Michael Trent. He wasn't just a guard. He was family. Briggs sank into a chair, staring at the photo. The connection between Cole, Hart, and Trent wasn't coincidence, it was a network. A years-long web of revenge, loyalty, and buried secrets. The ghost wasn't a stranger. The ghost was one of them. The next break came from the desert. A gas station attendant outside of Elko reported a man matching Trent's description buying fuel and bottled water, heading south toward an old mining road. Briggs followed the trail through scorched wasteland until she reached a rusted-out ghost town. Empty buildings, collapsed roofs, a forgotten place swallowed by sand. Near the old sheriff's office, she found tire marks, a half-empty canteen, and a pack of cigarettes, the same brand from the cliff. Her radio crackled. "Detective, we've got something," said one of the agents. A vehicle buried beneath the sand near the ridge. When they dug it out, the license plate was half melted. Inside was a hard drive duct-taped under the dashboard. Briggs plugged it into her laptop. Dozens of encrypted files filled the screen. Photos, emails, schematics of the prison, even guard shift rotations, all planned months in advance. But one file stopped her cold. Project Raven, initiated by M. Trent, approved by E. Cole. It wasn't just an escape. It was a mission. Cole and Trent had built the plan together years before the murder conviction. They'd been testing security weaknesses in multiple facilities, collecting data under the guise of military consultancy. When Cole was arrested, Trent stayed inside the system, watching, waiting, erasing evidence until the day came to set him free. But the final note in the file was what truly shook her. The ghost survives. If Cole falls, the plan continues. As the desert wind howled outside, Briggs realized the chilling truth. Cole's escape wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Trent had used him as bait. While the entire nation hunted a dead man, the ghost could move freely, inside police databases, prison systems, maybe even the bureau itself. A knock on the car window snapped her back. It was one of the agents. "Detective, you need to see this," he said. He handed her a photo recovered from the buried car's glove compartment. It was taken just a few weeks ago. Melissa Hart standing outside a diner in Reno, smiling. And beside her, alive and unshackled, was Evan Cole. The final betrayal. Detective Laura Briggs couldn't stop staring at the photograph. Evan Cole, the man declared dead, autopsied, buried. Standing alive beside Dr. Melissa Hart, smiling like the world hadn't just watched him burn his past to ashes. Her throat went dry. This was taken when? Timestamp says 5 days ago, the agent replied. Security camera outside a diner near Fallon, Nevada. 5 days. Meaning while Briggs was combing the desert for ghosts, the real Evan Cole was already gone. By the time the Bureau reopened the case, Cole and Hart had vanished again. But this time, Briggs didn't wait for permission. She pulled every string she had left. Traffic cams, ATM logs, cell phone towers, piecing together their trail like a hunter following footprints in the dark. The clues painted a chilling picture. They'd been traveling east. Quiet roads, cash only, no digital trace except one thing. Every place they stopped, someone disappeared. A mechanic in Ely, a motel clerk in Delta, a waitress in Grand Junction. Each victim had one thing in common: they'd helped Cole and Hart. And then they were gone. 3 weeks later, a storm rolled across the Utah border, pounding rain against the desert like a drum. Briggs followed the last ping from a stolen phone to an isolated ranch, miles from the nearest road. The front gate creaked open under the wind. Inside, the property was silent. No lights, no movement, just the low hum of the storm. Briggs entered the main house, weapon drawn. The air smelled of dust, oil, and something metallic. On the table lay a half-eaten meal, 2 plates, 2 glasses. Still warm. They'd been here. Recently. She moved deeper inside, flashlight cutting through the dark. In the corner of the living room stood a corkboard, covered in maps, news articles, photos. Every piece of the investigation pinned neatly, connected by red string. At the center of it all, her own face. Briggs froze. A chill crawled down her spine. Then a voice behind her. Calm, controlled, too familiar. "You've been getting closer than I expected, Detective." She turned sharply. Evan Cole stepped from the shadows, hands raised, no weapon. His pale eyes gleamed beneath the flicker of the lightning outside. He smiled. "But you should have stopped when I died." Briggs steadied her gun. You faked your death. Why? Cole tilted his head slightly. Because the world believes what it sees. A body, a bullet, a report, that's all people need to sleep at night. And while they were burying me, the ghost finished the plan. The ghost, Briggs said quietly. Michael Trent. Cole chuckled. Michael? No, he was just the prototype. The ghost isn't one man. It's an idea. A system built to free the forgotten, to burn down what built the cages. Briggs stepped closer. You're building an army. I'm building justice, he said. And you're standing in the way. Before she could respond, a figure emerged from the hallway. Dr. Melissa Hart. Her face was pale, eyes red from crying. Evan, please, she whispered. It's over. Let her go. He turned to her, his voice sharp. You said that when you opened the gate. Remember what happens when you hesitate. Melissa's hands trembled. This isn't justice anymore. Cole's tone dropped to a hiss. It never was. In that moment, Briggs saw it. The small pistol hidden behind Melissa's back, the tremor in her hand, the flicker of guilt in her eyes. Cole noticed too, just half a second too late. The shot cracked through the house. Cole staggered backward, shock frozen across his face. He collapsed to the floor, the storm outside drowning the silence. Melissa stood motionless, tears streaming down her cheeks. He wasn't supposed to hurt anyone else, she whispered. He promised. Briggs lowered her weapon slowly. You just saved a lot of lives. But Melissa shook her head. No, you don't understand. She stepped toward Cole's body and dropped a folded piece of paper beside him. Briggs picked it up, a handwritten note. If I fall, initiate phase 2. Underneath, a string of coordinates. Briggs typed them into her phone. They pointed not to a location, but to a network address. A live server. Within hours, cybercrime analysts traced it. What they found was staggering. A digital vault holding thousands of classified prison records, names, schedules, guard rotations, and encrypted access codes. A blueprint to every correctional facility in the western United States. While the world thought Cole was just a killer, he'd been building something far more dangerous. An automated release system. Once triggered, it would simultaneously disable security protocols in multiple prisons, opening every door. And now, the countdown had already begun. Agents flooded the ranch. Melissa Hart sat silently as they took her away, repeating one phrase over and over. He said freedom wasn't for him. It was for everyone else. Briggs and the cyber team worked through the night. They found the activation key hidden in the system. A phrase buried in Cole's code, written like poetry. The sky breaks where walls end. The same words he'd left at Lake Tahoe. With seconds left, they terminated the process, locking the servers, shutting down the system for good. At least that's what they thought. 3 weeks later, as the world moved on and the Bureau closed its final report, Briggs received an anonymous email. No subject line, no sender, just one sentence. You can't cage an idea, and attached a single image. Security footage from a European airport. A man with pale eyes boarding a plane to Lisbon. He turned toward the camera and smiled. Evan Cole. Alive. Again. If you thought this story was over, think again. Because some escapes don't end with a wall, they begin with one. If you want to know what happened next, hit subscribe. Because the next case, it's even darker.